How are we doing, everyone? I'm just double checking to make sure that I'm actually not muted this time. It's a disaster on my part the last time. Actually, not muted this time. It's a disaster on my part the last time. Okay. So, anyways, what I was wanting to do, since the debate itself was a little bit of a dumpster fire, considering all the technical issues and everything, I'm before I delete the myriad of actual scientific papers off of my toolbar here, I'm going to go ahead and go through them and actually present my evidence. And if Jungle Jargon wants to hop in here, if he's still up, or if he wants to respond to this, he can. I'll go ahead and leave it up on my channel. So first thing I'm going to look at is, let's see here. What we got here? Yeah, we'll go ahead and just do it this way. Okay. First thing we're going to do is come over here to the International Society of Genetic Genealogy. Okay, this is the most up-to-date Y-DNA haplogroup tree. I found it interesting, and I want to really thank the person on Facebook that sent me this link. I actually did get a hold of Ray Banks as well. And aside from the good luck for for being brave enough to talk to a creationist, because they tend to live in their own little world, he gave me some decent information as well. Now the thing is one thing that we have to look at is this is a cross country study, as well as I mean, there are many people that are literally there are many people that are actually working on this thing. So we have all of these people. This is just current ISOGG members who are working in the tree. You've got your coordinators. Ray Banks is the one that I talked to. He's a content editor. There are there's a metric ton of things that can be concluded here. But the S&P index alone, like I said there in my opening statement, there's like there's somewhere between 13 and 35,000 different S&P mutations, or SNP mutations. That's apparently that's what they're called. I mean, each one of these registers as a different mutation within a certain group. So the simple fact that we have zero mutation here is actually considered A00T is actually considered Y-DNA Adam. That's because Neanderthals and Denisovans are actually considered a different species, even though we were interbreeding. Now the 3 zeros and the 4 zeros. The 4 zeros is the Denisovans, and the 3 zeros is the Neanderthals. Okay. I'll get into the time frame here in a little bit, but what I'm wanting to explain is basically these are the literal genetic mutation lines that we get when going all the way from A00 to R. I mean, it's these mutations are everything from, hair color, eye color, skin color. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm going to go ahead and point out right here, the root of the Y haplogroup tree is the so-called Y chromosome atom, the most recent patrilineal ancestor of all people living today. He was not the only man living at the time. He was simply the only man with an unbroken male line of descent to the present day. Okay. Basically, if you're looking for the most recent common ancestor of two brothers, it's going to be their father. If you're looking for the most recent common ancestor of everybody on Earth, then it's going to be a lot further back. Okay. Let's see here. According to this right here, it says that the A haplogroup is thought to have been defined at around 60,000 years. BP. I'm not sure what 100% sure what that is, but the BT haplogroup split from the root of the Y around 55,000 years ago. The CF and in their instance, the DE haplogroup was the common ancestor of all people who migrated outside of Africa until recent times. That defining mutation occurred 31 to 55,000 years ago, or 31 to 55,000 years BP in Northeast Africa, and is still most common in Africa today in Ethiopia and the Sudan. The DE haplogroup appeared approximately 50,000 years ago in Northeast Africa, subsequently split into haplogroup E that spread to Europe and Africa, with haplogroup D that rapidly spread along the coastlines of India and Asia to North Asia. Sorry, I thought I had this thing on silent. There we go. YouTube pal, sorry. Okay, the DE haplogroup, haplogroup D that rapidly split along the coastlines of India and Asia to North Asia. The IJ haplogroup, which is what Jungle Jordan is claiming that he is, characterizes part of the second wave of emigration from Africa, that occurred via the Middle East 45,000 years BP, and defines two branches, I and J, that emigrated northwards and eastwards into Europe. The J branch subsequently split again and contributed to the current North African population. The NO haplogroup appeared approximately 35 to 40,000 years in BP in a region east of the Aral Sea. Subsequent branches spread into North Asia, and another branch, O, to South Asia via North India. Okay, so already we're getting into multiple tens of thousands of years ago, which means that this is not lining up with a 4,000-year-old Earth, or sorry, a 4,000-year-old flood. Okay, this is just let's see here. These are just mutation informations for RS numbers. There's a fairly long list. Still, I don't even see my side cursor, but I mean, there is a fairly long list of this stuff. I'm honestly not sure if that's all of them. I believe one of the papers that I saw said that they usually only list about 20% of the actual number of mutations, just for brevity. Here we go. Okay. Other than that, I mean, it's interesting. Let's see what we got here. Okay, go back to the main page. There we go. Okay, so I mean, we've got. They were even nice enough to actually put this, as a regular tree, and then a tree for the Chinese users. So if any of you guys speak Mandarin, you can tell me if that's relatively accurate or not. I really have no intentions of going into that one. But glossary of genetic terms, this is just an interesting glossary that you can actually kind of catch up on. If our certain fan, Mr. Kent Hovind over there, might get some benefit off of what this very first one is up here. He seems to have issues with being able to define those. Your standard SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. It's pronounced SNP. Literally, it's just a variation in the nucleotide allele at a certain nucleotide position in the human genome. Okay, so when you're counting your SNPs, basically the SNP that you see for A00 is going to be lower down in the genetic information than, say, the SNP for the I haplogroup, because there's a few different mutations there that A is not going to have, but I is going to have in addition to what A has. Okay. Going back to that, I mean, this is actually a very interesting page, really. I'm actually glad the guy sent this to me. I will actually go ahead and put that in the chat, just in case people want to take a look at it. Let me jump into my other channel real quick. That way I can. There we go. Okay. Obviously, Johnny Miller is my alternate account. That's mine and my kid's Nerf channel. It's the reason why I branched out. Obviously, if you've seen any of my shorter earlier videos. The next one is one of Jungle Jargon's favorite. It was one of his favorite maps to show us that, supposedly everybody who came from Turkey, because that's where the flood was supposed to have happened. The only problem is anybody actually looking at the bottom of this map, you will see that according to this tree, you have to start with Y-DNA atom, and then it goes to A B D E C F. F then turns into G H I N J K. K then turns into L T N O M S, and P, and then which turns into Q and R. Okay, so starting off with Y-DNA atom means you have to start right over here at this star right here. Okay. I don't see how he can look at this and immediately go, this supports my idea. Because that's actually what he does. And not 100% sure how that works. Let's see here. Somehow I've got two of those tabs. This is the NCBI PM. Okay. The Y chromosome tree bursts into leaf. There are 13,000 high confidence SNPs covering the majority of known clades. This was one paper that said there was 13,000. There's another paper up here that I'll get to in a second that shows that there's as much as 35 or 37,000. But these are actual papers, accredited scientists. This article has been cited by other articles a few times. The abstract itself is basically the sequencing of the MSY in each 448 human males at mean coverage of 51 times, yielding 13,261 high confidence SNPs, 65.9 of which were previously unreported. The resulting phylogeny covers the majority of the known clades, provides date estimates of nodes, and constitutes a robust evolutionary framework for analyzing the history of other classes of mutation. Different clades within the tree show subtle but significant differences in branch lengths to the root. We also apply a set of 23 YSTRs to the same samples, including allowing SNP and STR-based diversity and TMRCA estimates to be systematically compared. Now, the TMRCA, I'm not 100% sure what the TM is, but RCA, oh, sorry, the most recent common ancestor. It's a standard acronym. I knew the RCA part. I didn't catch the TM. But yeah, it's basically talking about how these are literally used to find the most recent common ancestor. We have SNPs found here. We have 13,000 here. There's another 2,386 here. There's another 11,000 here with no singletons. There's another 11,000 here. There's another 5,800 here, plus 56 MNPs, multiple nucleotide polymorphisms, possibly. Not 100% sure on that. This is complete genomics data set though, and found another 2,800 here. Let's see here. The results are described in NGS-based MSY phylogeny based on 5,996 SNPs ascertained in 334 human Y chromosomes, comprising 17 population samples from Europe and the Near East, focusing on illuminating the origins and histories of European patrilineages. Here we supplemented those data with additional MSY sequences from random selections of 20 males from each of the two HapMap populations. Okay, so basically what they're doing is they're taking as many of these SNPs and trying to find the most recent similarities, or the furthest back similarities, and that's how we get Y chromosome Adam. It's obviously not incredibly accurate, but basically it comes down to this tree right here, which is kind of interesting. Essentially, what it shows is you've got your Y chromosome Adam up here. There's countless lines that have completely died off, but you managed to get that single A00. Which I believe came from a small group in Cameroon. And then you turn around and you've got your A0 and then your Bs and everything like that. I mean, these are 50 plus mutations later, and then you've got the rest of the modern lines. It's interesting if you think about it. I mean, there are a ton of different clades and subclades in this area that shows. There we go. Okay, I mean, you got a bunch of different clades and subclades that show actual, huge quantities of mutations, and yet you have people that just absolutely refuse to believe that we have and are still evolving. See here, that was the first one. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. There we go. Towards a consensus on SNP and STR mutation rates in the human Y chromosome. This was something that was cited. I'm not sure if I Oh, this is talking about the STR rates. Uh, Basically, when they're checking the envelope rate or the essentially the age gap between SNPs and STR mutations, they've got their current estimate of the envelope rate is 0.75 to 0.89 substitutions per billion base pairs per year. Okay, the available YSNP mutation rates can be applied to high coverage data from the entire X-degenerate region, but other data sets may demand recalibrated rates. It's consensus. The consensus is approaching, but the debate on the STR rates has continued for 2 decades now because multiple genealogical rates were consistent with each other, but 3 times faster than the single evolutionary estimate. Applying the SNP and STR rates to the same haplogroups recently helped to clarify the issue. Genealogical and evolutionary STR rates typically provide lower and upper bounds of the true SNP based age. So basically, that's the reason why we end up with like a time frame of 120 to upwards of 300,000 years ago for Y chromosome Adam, because they're basically saying this is the absolute minimum, this is the absolute maximum. It's somewhere in here. So here, the genealogical rate often, but not always, works well for haplogroups less than 7,000 years old. The evolutionary rate, although calibrated using recent events, inflates ages of young haplogroups and deflates the age of the entire Y chromosomal tree, but often provides reasonable estimates for intermediate ages, older haplogroups. Future rate estimates and accumulating case studies should further clarify the SNP rates. So basically, what this is telling you is we do have a formula, or we do have a current formula for good educated guesses, and uh, 3/4 to 0.89 per billion base pairs per year. And the fact that we've got over 35,000, even on the absolute lowest range, we would get well over 20,000 years. And those are just the ones that I found. I'm pretty sure that there's quite a few more. Chromosome as a chronicler. This is basically just another one that's showing the genetic sequencing using as dating methods. I didn't really find anything new in here compared to the other ones. If you want to pause it and read through it, I'll leave it up there on the screen for a second, and you can actually double check that yourself. Here. Next one is the Y chromosome tree burst into it. No, that's the second one, or that's the same one I had before. Yeah, Wikipedia. That's always fun. Y chromosome Adam, I believe I had the method on here as what I was looking for. I don't really like using Wikipedia as a major reference, but it's basically just showing that that the molecular clock for the Y chromosome has a similar way of being measured to the molecular clock for the mtDNA chromosome. The only difference is the Y chromosome obviously is significantly longer with 60 million base pairs, whereas the mtDNA only has 16,000 base pairs and mutates frequently. It does mutate frequently, but we still have a fairly accurate way of gauging age on this one. As a matter of fact, I believe with the new study, they actually have mitochondrial Eve as being almost 1,000,000 years old now, when you include Neanderthal and Denisovian DNA. So that's actually kind of interesting. Go ahead and get out of that one. Okay, Okay, there we go. A recent bottleneck of Y chromosome diversity coincides with a global change in culture. Um, Basically, what this one was going to prove was something that I didn't quite get to in my opening statement. If you're going to try to explain to me that we all stem from Noah, his three sons, and Noah's wife, and the three sons' wives. Okay, that means that you are essentially saying that we came from four different men and four different women. Okay, now, first things first, the men all share the same father, which means that Noah and Shem, Ham, and Japheth are going to be very genetically similar. Okay, you're not going to get this many mutations in just a short time. Okay, however, I guess, support the theory on the fact the reason why Y chromosome, or sorry, mitochondrial Eve is older than Y chromosome Adam, because if you think about it, the three men, or Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and having Noah as their most recent common ancestor, would put Noah as Y chromosome Adam. However, from what I can gather through my studies, um, Noah's wife was not related in any way to Shem, Ham, and Japheth's wives. Okay, which means that you've got four different women who would have to trace their lineage all the way back to Eve. So, if you want to call that evidence, you're still looking at maybe a 2,000-year difference, as opposed to the 300,000-year difference that we are actually seeing. Okay. Now, as I said, this paper right here shows that we did apparently hit a bottleneck during the out of Africa dispersal about 50 to 100,000 years ago. I'm assuming this was during one of the ice ages where large populations of us died, and it makes sense. The only problem is this is 50 to 100,000 years ago. If we can go that far back and look at what happens here, uh, then yeah, I mean, if we can actually see this, then where is the one from 4,000 years ago? Because this is showing 50 to 100,000 years ago. Apparently, there was a second smaller event down to the last 10,000 years on the mtDNA side, which means lack of women. But at the same time, they're hypothesizing that this bottleneck is caused by cultural changes affecting variances of reproductive success among males. Okay. Uh, Not 100% sure about year wise here, but if you look at it, we have genetic evidence of 50 to 100,000 years ago there was a bottleneck event. 10,000 years ago there was a bottleneck event on just the female side. Okay, that right there tells you that not only can we track it fairly accurately, but we can actually track on what side it happened. Okay, so looking at that right there, we should be able to find in our genetic makeup a bottleneck on the male side, not the female side, 4,400 years ago, and we don't see that. So it is my position that genetics not only cannot be used as evidence for Noah's flood, but it is absolutely ridiculous to think it can be, just for the simple fact that, once again, Jungle, the evidence does not support your argument at all. There was one paper that Jungle tried using that was an excerpt out of a creationist book. I didn't even bother grabbing it, but it's essentially trying to label the family tree branch down to basically this tree right here. It misrepresented it to make it look more like a snowflake than an actual tree, and that's, I'm assuming, where Jungle got the whole thing about where Noah would have been right in the middle of the snowflake because he was the father to the rest of us. The only problem is again, that doesn't work when you have biased evidence. It's one of the reasons why I have issues with vegans, because the evidence that they have is, I mean, aside from not being very good or evidence at all, the evidence that they present generally has a good page and a half of affiliation biases in it. Okay, the problem is if you were to talk to a food critic and say he's publishing in the paper about these restaurants that he's going to, and then turns around and secretly reveals to you that half of the places that he goes to he doesn't like the food at, but he can only give them good reviews because that's what his boss or that's because he's only allowed to place his reviews if they agree with his boss's point of view. Okay. The reason why I'm bringing this analogy up is because of the so-called Answers in Genesis statement of faith. When you have somebody who holds a PhD in a relevant field talking about a subject, but talking about it dishonestly with a written legal document showing that he is not allowed to use evidence as if it violates company standards, or I believe the Answers in Genesis statement of faith is if it violates the scriptures or the creationist point of view. Okay, so if you're not gonna if you're gonna trust if you're not gonna trust a food critic who admits to you that he can't be an actual critic of food because his boss won't allow him to post anything that he doesn't agree with, then why would you trust a PhD who is signed a public statement of faith that says that he's not going to post anything that is going to jeopardize his situation with his boss? I mean, in my opinion, that is one of the most dishonest stances you can hold. So at that point, right there, I cut off the fact that that is not evidence. There is some major issues that I have with a lot of these things. The problem is if you're actually going to actually start doing this and be sincere about it, then you really actually have to figure out where and what is actually going on. Okay. I mean, I really wish people could learn how to process data the right way, and not just the data that matches my point of view either. I have no issues whatsoever. If you saw something there that you want to point out that I got wrong, please, give me a timestamp, tell me what image I was looking at, and tell me where I got it wrong. Okay. The insulting and stuff like that I've noticed that has led certain individuals in this community to call it the drama community. You can leave that at the door if you want to. If you want to, I'm not even going to bother deleting your comments. I'm just going to ignore them. But like I said, if you have something that you can prove me wrong with, go right ahead. Let me know. I am always up for a discussion. I am always up for a friendly argument. I am not normally up for a shouting match because I'm awake at night and the rest of my family's asleep. So just keep that in mind. Uh, I have no issues whatsoever when talking about this kind of stuff. I have no issues, actually digging into research papers and looking at them. So that right there should hopefully tell you that I am at least fairly intellectually honest. If you want to actually pay attention to, oh yeah, sorry, treat over here. If you look at this paper right here, uh, published March 9th, shows the evolutionary history between of Neanderthal and Denisovan Y chromosomes. This picture, or this actually showed the. This is a 103-page paper. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but it actually showed that they did finally sequence, Y chromosome, Neanderthal, and Denisovan DNA. So this right here is showing exactly what Jungle Jargon was complaining that we didn't have. We have, let's see here. I'll just go ahead and read the abstract. Ancient DNA has allowed the study of various aspects of human history in unprecedented detail. However, because of the majority of archaic human specimens preserved well enough for genome sequencing have been female, comprehensive studies of Y chromosomes of Denisovans and Neanderthals have not been yet possible. Here we present sequences of the first Denisovan Y chromosomes, Denisova 4 and Denisova 8, as well as the Y chromosomes of 3 late Neanderthals. Spy 94A, Mesmiskaya 2, and Elcidron 1253. We find that the Denisovan Y chromosome split about 700,000 years ago from a lineage shared by Neanderthal and modern human Y chromosomes, which diverged from each other around 370,000 years ago. The phylogenetic relationship of archaic and modern human Y chromosomes therefore differ from population relationships inferred from their autosomal genomes and mirror the relationships observed on the level of mitochondrial DNA. This provides strong evidence that gene flow from an early lineage related to modern humans resulted in the replacement of both the mitochondrial and Y chromosome gene pools in late Neanderthals. Although unlikely under neutrality, we show that this replacement is plausible if the low effective population size of Neanderthals resulted in an increased genetic load on their in their Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA relative to modern humans. So when you're reading a paper and you look at the abstract, it's basically the super condensed form. Okay. As I said, this is a 103-page paper. I'm not going to go through all 103 pages because one, it's incredibly technical, and two, I've already done it. So basically, what it's showing is that humans diverged from Neanderthals about 370,000 years ago. The common ancestor with Neanderthals and humans diverged from Denisovans around 700,000 years ago. Okay, so you've got your Denisovans who branched off first, re-intermingled with Neanderthals and apparently humans, and then Neanderthals and humans split about 370,000 years ago, and Neanderthals and humans were interbreeding as well. Okay. Apparently, this is showing that yes, it's true. We don't have any living Y chromosome Neanderthals, but we still have their genes sequenced. So this does, in fact, actually prove that we have the ability to sequence and figure out what happened with the Denisovan and the Neanderthal Y chromosome. So, Jungle, if you want to go ahead and figure this one out, you're looking at 700,000 years ago and 370,000 years ago, and this is just from ancestral split. So, if your take is that Neanderthals and Denisovans weren't human, then you're going to have to come up with that 300 to 370,000 years being the split, and why we don't see a bottleneck in the last 4,000 years. I mean, the split itself shows the slight narrative that you're having to run, because unfortunately none of this is in the Bible, therefore it's not true, apparently. Okay. Yeah, this is. I'm fairly certain that most of my rational viewers will understand where I'm trying to go here. I'm not the absolute best at articulation, mostly because I've been talking for the last few hours now. But it's one of those things where I'm giving you guys the benefit of the doubt. I'm not trying to wave papers around and call it. I'm not trying to do that, because I absolutely hate it when people try and do that shit to me. If you want me to, if you want me to email you links to these, I have no problems with it. Just go ahead and leave me a comment down here, and I will get you the email links. I believe I've got to do that to somebody on YouTube already. I was watching a video of his last night, and he actually missed this. So I'll leave that one up. But yeah, I mean, uh, it's slightly ridiculous. I don't know. Now, one thing I want to make perfectly clear, especially about this channel, okay? I've said it a few times already. I have no issues generally with religious people. I am a minister registered with the county for atheism. Let's see here. I've got that around here somewhere. I can show you. Let's see here. Yep, the American Marriage Ministries. So yeah, it's it's a ministry. There we go. Okay. It's a ministry mill. Kind of like Kent Hovind's diploma mill, but it is actually a ministerial certificate. Nice little stamp and everything like that. I've been a ordained minister since December of 2017. When the first request to marry a lesbian friend, that didn't actually go through, but I am glad that they did manage to get married. But yeah, it's I don't know. See, the way I see it is, if Kent Hovind can call himself a doctor, then I can call myself a preacher. Of course, obviously, me calling myself a preacher is severely tongue-in-cheek. But yeah, I don't generally have an issue with religion in that aspect, or I should say, I don't have an issue with religious people for the most part. I have an issue with fundamentalism, and by that I mean flat earthers, creationists, Seventh Day Adventists. And it's not just limited to religious people. Actually, it's people that flat out deny reality. I also take a lot of umbrage with ethical vegans because I'm sorry, but I've been wearing this shirt, all night. See, a nice little, yeah. Uh, I'm sorry, but if you're an ethical vegan and you eat anything except for food that you can grow out of your own garden, replete with bug shit and everything like that on it, and getting it stolen by the rabbits every now and then you're not an ethical vegan. Because if you're going to the store and buying crap sprayed down with glyphosate and run over by combines, because I mean, I live in Oklahoma. There's a farm right down the road here. He's got a combine that's covered in blood because when he goes to harvest his fields, he will run over anything that is in that field. And I am talking about foxes. I'm talking about deer. I'm talking about anything. Okay. So if you're worried about the cute and fluffies and you eat anything from a store, then you're a hypocrite. uh, if you think that eating avocado is good for you, which I can see that avocado has got a decent fat profile to it. It's mostly omega 6, but it's still got a decent fat profile to it compared to carbohydrate. And yeah, but at the same time, those avocado plantations are generally the ones that are uh, getting taken over by cartels and being and running on slave labor now because of the huge increase in demand of avocado. And I mean, yeah, I'll admit, before I started my carnivore diet, I turned around and ate avocados. I'm Puerto Rican descent. I do my taquitos and avocado sauce, and throw a little bit of diced avocado every now and then on taco. But I don't do that anymore. As a matter of fact, my last cheat was because of the depressing news about not being able to go down to Texas next weekend on my vacation, thereby ruining my vacation and ruining my kids' desire to go play or go have a Nerf war in Cowboy Stadium. I got a little depressed. I ate a pizza and I gained 10 pounds. So I'm working that back off, but it's the amount of inflammation you can get just by eating carbs is ridiculous. Uh, but like I said, I have issues. I do have issues with people um, in general. I am, or I was severely antisocial growing up. Unfortunately, as an atheist in Oklahoma, that's kind of a given. But I took it a step further by being, fat, ugly, hairy, and an atheist in general because I was fairly outspoken by the time I turned 18. Uh, they did not like me at church. I got kicked out for asking too many questions. Yeah. But I guess just to let me talk a little bit more here. I don't know. I do have plans for dealing with my 3D printer over here. Having a little bit of trouble with bed adhesion right now, trying to figure out how to get that taken care of. But I've got a couple of kilogram rolls of white filament. I'm gonna hop on eBay here later on and pick up a couple more in different colors. But I figure the white will give me a chance to practice with it and get everything that doesn't really need to be seen first. Figure out how to do supports and stuff like that. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. At the same time, as usual, it's a new project, so I'm gonna have a lot of learning to do. Let's see. I play around with Nerf guns for fun. To any of you that know, this is a standard $14 hammer shot. Unfortunately, this thing right here has got a metal trigger, hammer, upgraded cylinder. Ignore that number. That's not mine anymore. Need to wipe that off. But and then of course it's got a very nice 3D printed additional barrel on it to actually kind of give it an easier way to aim. So yeah, I like it. I think it's kind of cool. Definitely makes it easier to aim, like I said. One thing that I'm looking for is to be able to start leather working, because unfortunately with the extended barrels on it, my back holster doesn't work anymore. So I need to figure that one out. But yeah, so 3D printing, Nerf. I get slightly obsessive about certain things in my hobbies. I've got a toolbox full of chainmail right over here. I've actually got a 30-pound weighted chainmail shirt running around here somewhere that I made with 2 pair of pliers and steel links, just basically putting them together one at a time. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Those are fun. At least fun to look at. I obviously can't use them as any type of weapon, but they're definitely fun to look at. I have a decent amount of collections. No, and on top of that, I am also what you could be considered an ethical carnivore. I don't buy factory feedlot meat. I kind of take the stance of, or I actually do kind of side with the vegans slightly on that one. There's really no need to cause suffering. However, I don't put suffering and rendering down an animal as food to be the same thing, for the simple fact that once you kill the animal, the suffering's gone. So, my meat comes from the field that's about a quarter mile to my right here. Yep. My next door neighbor, there's a fairly large field between us. He raises grass-fed cattle, and that's exactly where I get my food from. So, the ones that like to call me hypocrite and everything like that, no, not really. I guess I am a hypocrite in the fact that I just still drink out of a plastic bottle, but other than that, yeah. What I will do is I'm going to go ahead and I don't want to be live for a full hour just for this, but I hope you guys got a decent look at all the information that I was going to be bringing to the table. And like I said, if you have anything to say, you want to tell me I'm wrong, whatever you want, just do me a favor, let me know where I'm wrong, and how if you've got evidence to present me, on actually being wrong, then provide it. I'll jump into a stream and I'll invite you, and you can provide it in real time if you want. That's fine. I have no problems with that. Uh, if you want to sit there and call me a fat hairy guy, on the comments to this, go right ahead. I don't care. I'll probably ignore you. Uh, I mean, hell, after losing 95 pounds in the last year and a half, being called fat is like one of the weirdest insults I still get. I mean, yeah, I know I'm still considered overweight, but once you drop 2 stages out of the obese category, it's like, yeah, I'm not as fat as I used to be. So, which point? Uh, yep. That's basically everything I can think of. Yep. I have no issues. Sorry. Just last thing, real quick. Like I said, I have no issues talking with people. If you want to talk to me about religion, politics, uh, ethics, you want to talk to me about being a vegan. You want to talk to me about why I'm a carnivore. I can, take you through the research that I did myself to justify becoming a carnivore. I can take you through, the first couple of weeks, which were not fun, but once the adaptation phase rolls through, it's definitely a whole new experience. Like I said, I am what am I trying to think of here? My anxiety and depression have been severely impacted by the fact that I'm carnivore, and they are almost completely gone now. Um, a couple of years ago, I would have been absolutely scared to death trying to get onto YouTube and just sitting here talking to myself, even though it looks like I've got an empty chat. So I mean, it's whatever it is. Uh, yeah. Uh, like I said, I am up to talk to anybody. If anybody wants to invite me to a live stream or anything like that, uh, or if you want to record something beforehand and then post it, that's fine too. Just let me know, and I'll be hanging around. I mean, yep. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here before I hit that hour mark because I really don't want to have to deal with that. But yeah, just go ahead and drop me a line anytime you need to. Drop a comment in one of my videos, or send me a message on or at my email. Uh, Email address for my carnivorous ape channel is millerjohnny3319 at gmail. Which, I mean, some people might think that's doxing myself, but it's not really, considering my other channel's name is Johnny Miller. So it doesn't really matter too much. Uh, I'll go ahead and drop my email in the description of this video when I post it, and or when I repost it. If you want to get a hold of me, just get a hold of me. I'm up for chats. I'm up for debates. I'm not going to argue just for the sake of arguing. If I don't think that I'm right, I'm obviously not going to bother with the debate. But I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you. But anyways, you guys have a good night. Stay healthy, eat meat, avoid that coronavirus. Bye.